Welcome, everyone, to episode 128 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared-Syn. I'm sorry. I'm Jared Hornbeck. I'm not Jared-Syn. I don't want to be destroyed, so we're clear. I'm not promoting the destruction of myself, but you know what? For all intents and purposes, just call me One Eye. But I'm not the only person who is wandering around and milling about in this barren desert land. No, who else is here with me?
Well, I'm Steve Guntley, aka The Finder, and I just have to say I'm so glad that you did not leave that money on the table there. How often are we going to get a movie with one of our names in the actual title of it? You got to pick that up. So I appreciate.
You want to know what's funny about that, Steve? Is that was not in my first copy, and then I went, "Wait a minute, what am I doing?" It's look, here.
We've been given a gift, okay? This is the podcast about sci-fights, sandworms, and less shitty Cybertrucks. That's because this is the podcast about Metalstorm, the destruction of Jared-Syn, a 3D sci-fi spectacular from the early days of Empire Pictures. We're very excited to get into this one. It's a big cult favorite and it's became recently surprisingly relevant in a way that we'll get into, but I'm also very excited because we have a super cool guest joining us here today. Jared, who is here with us today in this
we sure do. We sure do have a super awesome, exciting guest with us today. Many of our listeners, I'm sure, have at least heard of, if not been following since episode 1, the amazing Kill by Kill podcast. We had one half of that podcasting team on already, I believe, to talk TerrorVision.
Yes,
with us at some point last year. Our guest today is the other half of that hosting duo. She is a writer and blogger / critic, all of these amazing things. She writes, as her email tells us, but she's one half of the Kill by Kill host, and she's Gena Radcliffe, and she's awesome, and she's here. So Gena, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for that spectacular introduction.
Woo.
Well, thank you for living up to it. How dare you? It's so good to have you on the show. It's so exciting. I'm such a fan of your writing and of the Kill by Kill podcast. So it's really cool to have you here talking about a real strange little gem of a movie, I think, that we can get into. I was curious why you wanted to talk about Metalstorm in particular.
Well, when you contacted me about being on the show, you very helpfully provided a list of movies to choose from. And that one jumped out at me because that's sort of like, it's like, oh, I haven't thought about this movie in years. Mm-hmm. And it is definitely a movie I remember watching back when I was a kid in the 80s as part of a very, long line of rip-offs of like post-apocalyptic Mad Max meets Conan the Barbarian meets Star Wars kinds of movies, and this is probably among the least memorable ones of them. What makes it stand out is it's very silly name because there is no Metalstorm. it's just a cool name.
What does that subtitle mean? But it also implies that we are going to be stepping into an established universe with myth and legend and stuff like that.
And it's just a desert planet, and it's like there's nothing remarkable about it.
No,
I want to pull out my finest Linda Richman for this and say, Metalstorm, neither metal nor storm.
Exactly. Wow. Got a storm in the bunch.
Not one. But it's evocative. It's a nice title. It sounds like it sounds like you're in for something epic and cool. And I think this movie does have better production values than a lot of the films that Charles Band was putting out at this time. You could see why he would be like really excited about it. It's
he was definitely trying to set this up as a potential series.
Clearly, yeah. The way this ends is just like, this feels like chapter 1, and we're never going to get the rest of that book.
But luckily for us, we get the union of Charles Band and Tim Thomerson,
of course,
which would then, a year later result in Trancers.
Absolutely. So, and the union of Charles Band and Jeffrey Byron, who a year later would result in The Dungeon Master, both movies that we enjoy. So yeah, it's cool that we're getting a lot of these, and I think this is definitely going to be one of those movies where like the production and the history around it are far more interesting than what we're actually seeing on
no doubt.
screen.
That's always the case with a lot of low budget action movies.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially when it's like, so, we talked recently about the movie Crash that he made back in the 1970s, which is about a psychically controlled car going on a rampage and killing everybody. And that's like, despite that log line, that's a really boring movie with a couple of good like car crashes. But you get to learn about how like these are basically just rogue like 26-year-old filmmakers like going out into the desert with cameras and a bunch of cars and just smashing shit together and hoping it all works out and almost dying like half a dozen times. Like that's much more interesting than anything we're going to be seeing. And there's a similar kind of cadence to this. So let me get into a little bit about Metalstorm.
Please.
The destruction of Jared-Syn. And it's very important that y'all know that Jared-Syn is hyphenated and Sin is spelled with a Y. In case you're not looking at the title right now, it's very important to me that you all know that. It was released August 19th, 1983. It's directed by Charles Band, written by Alan J. Adler, and it stars Jeffrey Byron, Michael Preston, Tim Thomerson, Kelly Preston, and Richard Mole. All right, fun cast. Not like a huge cast, but a really fun one. Lots of bangers in here. So in 1982, for a little bit of context for folks who didn't listen to our episode on Parasite, Charles Band scored a modest hit with that film, which is a very early role for Demi Moore. There's a couple of interesting things about that movie. But the biggest thing that movie had going for it was 3D technology. Charles Band is a guy who does tend to be ahead of trends, sometimes too far ahead of trends. Like he opened the first video store in LA, like 7 years before the VHS really like took off, before like Blockbuster was a thing, so he's sometimes a little bit too far ahead of it, but he seemed to be right on the money to ride this new wave of 3D hype, especially for like very low budget kind of genre pictures around this time. This was not the kind of technology you were attaching to like an Avatar or something like that. This is not prestige stuff, but it is kind of adding to the sort of throwbacky, almost grindhouse kind of vibe to the genre movies of the 1980s.
For sure.
And the technology that he established was pretty good, pretty effective. It was an improvement over what they did back in the 50s. So after establishing that he could do 3D well on a small budget, he started planning his next stereoscopic feature. And luckily, Charlie had a great new partner to work with, his father, Albert Band, who was in kind of the waning years of his own film career. And he decided he was going to step aside from that and just join his sons in their new venture. I think that was a really big boon for them because Albert Band is a pretty well-connected guy, especially in the B-movie circles. He was able to pull together the budget for this film, which actually had much more impressive production design than most of Empire's early efforts, especially like at this time. Like Empire's not even fully solidified yet. And so like this is definitely one of their more ambitious early projects.
I if I'm not mistaken, I don't think this one doesn't technically fall under the Empire umbrella. This one is, I think, the movie that led to Empire. Like, I think this movie, because Jeffrey, and also you mentioned the Parasite episode, great episode. If you have not heard our episode from January of last year with Jeffrey Byron, the star of this movie, talking about the Dungeon Master, definitely check that episode out. The Dungeon Master, I think, was the first movie that technically was made under Empire Pictures, and I think this is the one that actually kind of like opened the door to Charles Band being able to form this company. But the math doesn't always math, because sometimes you look at these things, and Jeffrey Byron tells a story about how they wrapped like principal photography on this movie at like 10:30 p.m. on a Friday night, and then at 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning they started shooting the Dungeon Master.
Right. With a lot of the same cast. Yeah. Are you familiar with the Dungeon Master? Have you seen that one?
The Dungeon Master, no, but you mentioned Parasite, and we have actually done an episode on Kill by Kill Parasite.
Kind of fun movie. Like, Charles Band really likes to put like just way too many different elements into the blender. Like, there's no reason that had to be like a creature feature that's also a dystopian movie that's also a science fiction film. Like there's no reason to complicate it that much, but like I kind of love that he did it. Yeah,
he clearly thought that the money was in post-apocalyptic action movies back.
He probably was not wrong. Probably not. Yeah, Mad Max was a huge hit that was made on a comparable, if not smaller budget to this film, so there's reason to believe that kind of thing was going to take off.
This one isn't quite Mad Max. We'll call this one Miffed Max.
Sure, yeah, mildly irritated Max. Yeah,
I just feel like he figured that's where his fortune was going to be, and then the Terminator comes out. He's like, shit, I can't compete with this. I don't have the money for this.
But he did Trancers though, which is like a straight up like Terminator knockoff. So he at least was willing to pivot and get on board with that.
Should also be mentioned that Charles Band and his family did grow up in Italy, and so the Italian model for making films is very prevalent in this one, especially with getting his father involved, who made a lot of films in Italy. And I just feel like, Italy had this fascination because I feel like it's easy. Like it's easy to do post-apocalyptic. You just need a barren area to film in. And that's why you get all those amazing like 1990 The Bronx Warriors and movies like that are just post-apocalyptic Italian movies. And this one has shades of, in addition to Mad Max, and also borrowing very heavily, maybe even more than from Mad Max, from Star Wars.
Quite a bit of that.
Definitely, this had that like Italian like patchwork kind of rip-off vibe to it. Like there's a lot of like shots of sandy hills, and I was expecting like Urbano Barberini to just come like walking down the hill at one point. And that's an Outlaw of Gore reference, everyone. You're welcome for that.
And we appreciate that. I have not thought about the Outlaw of Gore today. That's my Roman Empire.
Well, you were too busy thinking about your YOR, but that's Reb Brown.
Of course, obviously.
Don't confuse the two.
Original Captain America. Yeah, no, obviously it's Reb Brown.
The only Captain America. The only Captain America's ass I care about. He's America's ass.
He is. Reb Brown is America's ass. So Charles Band said the production of this film was fun but very challenging, as you might expect from having to work in a sweltering hot desert for days at a time. They also had to kind of bombard everything with like high lighting because they needed it for the 3D technology. So it was very, very hot and uncomfortable, but he claims that it was a lot of fun. Really liked the cast. And it also wound up being a little bit of a messy shoot for Charles Band's personal life. He talks about this in his autobiography. During production of this film, a production assistant named Debbie Dion became his personal chauffeur for a little bit. And the two of them became quite close, although Charles Band was still married to his first wife, Meta, at the time. And when his marriage eventually fizzled out, he and Debbie Dion got married and would stay together for the next 20 years. She was a big, big part of building Full Moon. So, he's very sheepish about it in his autobiography. He's just like, look, I made a mess. I hurt people. It was not cool. But he said it led to the single most awkward night of his life, which was...
I was going to say, Steve, I'll let you get back to the story in one second. But you're saying he was sheepish about, I don't know, this reads like a humble brag.
A little bit, because he's sitting there talking about being at the premiere of Metalstorm, and he's with his wife Meta, and then Debbie comes and joins them, and the three of them are all sitting together, and then Demi Moore comes over, who was a former fling of Charles Band that he also had kind of an extramarital affair with. And they were all hanging out and talking until he said he had a mild panic attack and had to go outside and get some air. So, things got a little messy on the production of this one, but, it all worked out in the end. Band says that Metalstorm is actually one of the films fans bring up to him the most. And it was one of his most mainstream plays to date. Like I said, 3D was becoming a trend. And more studios were they were trying to retrofit their 3D into some of their films. So one of the big ones at the time was going to be Jaws 3, Jaws 3D, which Universal was putting out. And so in order to project these 3D movies in these theaters, they had to retrofit them with all this new technology, which could be quite expensive. So studios started ordering 3D films in packages. And that's what caused Universal to reach out to Charles Band and say, hey, what have you got? Are you working on anything? He had his editor slap together a test reel over the weekend and sent it over to him. And Universal bought it for $3 million. And the film only cost about $900,000 to make. So that was a pretty nice little windfall for him. And the movie wound up being a modest little hit for its time. It grossed $6 million in its theatrical run. Critics shredded it, but it became sort of a basic cable favorite over the years.
I also feel like this was very much a take your kid to the movies movie. Like this
Sure.
it was August, it's the summer, kids are off from school, you want to go somewhere air conditioned. Oh, well, we already saw Jaws 3, we already saw I don't know, Flashdance. I'm trying to think what would have been in the theater. Return of the Jedi, we already saw. It's like, oh, you like
Tender Mercies. Yeah, everybody
you
already
like
went and saw Tender
sandy
Mercies.
movies with little robed alien figures in them, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
of
what's this
course.
one? Oh, it's 3D. It looks kind of like a sci-fi. Yeah, sure. Like this is one of those movies. No disrespect to Charles Band. Obviously, we're doing this show, so we have a lot of love and reverence for the man. But I can totally see this being. I obviously was too young to have seen this in the theater,
Yeah.
but I can imagine like a lot of parents walking out of the theater with them and being like, "I'm not letting you choose the movie again."
No, no. No, we're only seeing my favorite year from now on. Sorry, kids. Actually, not a bad trade-off. That's a pretty good way to go.
He's got to
Well,
learn sometime.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I don't know if this is common knowledge, but I feel where I started to notice this, or at least hear it talked about, was when Drew McQueenie and Scott Weinberg had the 80s All Over podcast.
Oh, sure.
Which was because they kind of prefaced that 1983 is a bad movie year.
Kind of is,
Like,
yeah, for the most part.
I mean, you have Jaws 3, which is terrible. We're going to say a lot of things about this, about Metalstorm. I will watch Metalstorm again before I watch Jaws 3 again.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you.
You know,
I kind of think
I'm gonna agree with you there. Again, we've done Jaws 3 for the for Kill by Kill as well, and yeah, I don't think I don't think Metalstorm is a particularly good movie, but it's not good in a different way that Jaws 3D is not good.
Yeah. I actually put Jaws 3 at the bottom of that series. Like, I would sooner watch Jaws the Revenge before I watch Jaws 3. Jaws the Revenge at least has like a camp element to it.
It does. It's just like a really stupid, like cheap, like ill-advised sequel, but it doesn't have the kind of cynicism that I find Jaws 3 has. And there's another part 4 I feel the same way about, and this part 3 also came out in 1983. I'm telling you, bad movie year. Steve, you and me, one of our favorite movies of all time, Superman 3.
Oh my God. Yeah. Again,
that was sarcasm for anyone. Steve and I hate this movie with a passion. We've had many conversations about it. Superman 3, one of my least favorite movies ever made.
Yeah, again, I would prefer to watch Quest for Peace like any day of the week. It's half an hour shorter, it's way dumber, and you get Superman working out in the gym and being a goofball, so that's at least funny.
You also got a guy named Mark Pillow.
Mark Pillow.
Thought was a really funny name.
Oh, yeah. It didn't, like, I don't know if y'all have ever are familiar with a movie called, obviously you heard The Lone Ranger, but in the early 80s, they tried to revive The Lone Ranger. And it was going to be this big debut for this actor no one had ever heard of, who also has a great name. His name was Clinton Spilsbury.
Oh, that's a good name.
Not Pillsbury, Spilsbury.
Clinton Spilsbury.
And Clinton with a K. No.
Clinton with a Clinton. Oh, Clinton with a K. Okay, I thought you said Quinton. Oh, wow.
No,
okay.
Clinton with a K. And I just feel like, to a lesser extent, this was also supposed to be like the big debut. But we're gonna kind of like how with the new Superman, how this actor David Corenswet is not super well known, but this is going to be now he's going to be a huge star after this, and that's probably true. But like for these two, it's just like no,
yeah,
like their dreams died on like just how bad these movies were.
Yeah.
Now I'm shocked. I'm not familiar with this. They made the movie, the Lone Ranger movie.
Oh yeah, it's called The Legend of the Lone Ranger. I believe it was 81 or 82. It's a legendary just disaster in every way. I encourage you to look up like the making of it because it is hilarious.
It would be
does
great
have,
if it was 83.
It does have Twin Peaks' Michael Horse as Tonto, so I will say that. It's that guy.
Yeah, that the best thing you could say is that it actually they did cast a real indigenous actor to play an indigenous character, and that's like the only good thing you could say about it.
Yeah. It's and that in the name Clinton Spilsbury, which
exactly.
And how is that an American? That is like the Britishest name I've ever heard. Like, but that is an American actor.
Yeah.
I just fell down a rabbit hole there. It looks like that was his one and only film credit. That was it.
Yep.
He hung up his spurs after that, became a male model for a while. So,
well, because Jaws 3 premiered a year later, and the silly name market was now taken over by Simon McCorkindale.
Oh, yes.
Hey, you leave Manimal alone. May he rest in peace.
See, this is the kind of this is the kind of conversation we need, where it's like someone close enough in age that we could just kind of vibe and throw out references like Manimal.
Well, speaking of early 80s TV, Metalstorm wound up having a kind of surprising a legacy just last year when they came out with the 2024 film The Fall Guy, which is based on an early 80s, late 70s TV show starring Lee Majors. That movie is super, super fun. And it's about like if you haven't seen it, it's about a stuntman, and like they're making a movie and he gets involved in this whole crime thing.
And an unknown stuntman, it should be pointed out.
Yes, exactly. An unknown stuntman. And they are making a movie, a huge like Michael Bay-esque like spectacle movie called Metalstorm, which has the tagline "High Noon at the End of the Universe." So this is a direct reference to the Charles Band movie Metalstorm in like a major summer tentpole movie, which I was very delighted when I saw that movie, and I'm glad we were doing the show at the time so that I recognized that probably if I had not been doing the show, that reference would have gone over my head. So I was really happy, and I was being the most obnoxious, like nudging everybody. Guess what? I understand this. You want to learn something?
And instead, like, you're doing like the Leonardo DiCaprio, like pointing at the screen, saying, like, I get that.
Yes.
I think it was, I think a friend of the show, Danny Torkel, was maybe the first person I knew who saw the movie maybe in its opening weekend or something.
Yeah.
And he just texted me right after, and he's like, dude, there's a movie called Metalstorm in The Fall Guy, and he's like, I think it's based on Metalstorm. And I'm like, yeah, man, I think you're right, because he had ended up doing Tourist Trap really early with us in the run of the show, but he had floated the idea of Metalstorm as one he was familiar with. And I got a handful of texts from other people before I actually saw the movie that said the same thing. And I was like, yeah, this is very serendipitous timing. That it's like that we're doing the show and people are talking about Metalstorm.
And now, having watched the original movie, like I think the joke is that they're actually making like a big budget remake of this Metalstorm. Like they have the same kind of like vehicle design. It's the same kind of like cowboys in the future in the dystopian desert world. Like you could see a lot of different like parallels between what they're trying to do. And the Aaron Taylor Johnson character is definitely, could be like the Dojin character in this movie, like, I don't know. I feel like it's a direct reference in a really fun way.
Yeah, I think so too. And Gena, you mentioned being familiar with the name of this movie at least and having seen it. This also strikes me as like, to borrow a phrase from We Hate Movies, this is very much like a hangover movie. Like you can kind of just dip in and out of consciousness and not really miss anything and just sort of being like, they're still racing around the desert, eh? Like,
it's that. It's also got a little bit of the Beastmaster thing where for a period, it always just seemed to be on somewhere. Probably because it was bought for cheap by like HBO and other nascent.
I think it was HBO.
Channels.
I'm pretty sure that post 1985 or something, like John Coscarelli could have just lived off of the royalties of the Beastmaster playing on cable.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was on all the time.
You got you earlier mentioned your Krull, all those all of these attempts at trying to establish the next Star Wars. And they none of them really worked, and so they just all ended up on cable as sort of like burned into the brains of Gen X age people forever.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Gena, I'm curious. So you saw this movie though when you were a kid. What was your sort of experience with Charles Band like growing up? Because obviously, this is the precursor leading into Empire. Empire becomes kind of a brand name in terms of like you expect a certain kind of movie for the most part to be made. And then with Full Moon Features, you definitely expect a certain type of movie to be made, and that company's over 35 years going strong now. So were you familiar with like Charles Band's other work, or what kind of stuff did you encounter along the way?
Well, when I got to be a teenager in the mid to late '80s, there was there was a period where I would just pretty much watch whatever B grade horror movies came onto cable. So I particularly enjoyed the Subspecies movies. Again, they're not very good, but they got a lot of atmosphere, and I do like. I think that the vampire is pretty he's underrated as far as vampire characters go. He's got a good look. I always appreciated that. He looks sort of monstrous, and I always thought that was pretty memorable. I had a weird obsession with the movie Dolls for a little while.
Sure.
It's so weird and so funny, and like every non-doll character in it is absolutely awful and deserves every single horrible thing that happens to them. The first Troll was just this movie I would find myself just watching whenever it was on, even though it was kind of an unpleasant movie.
A little bit.
And so a lot of his like late '80s horror I've probably seen at least once.
Nice. Yeah, I assume you were part of the video store kid tradition that just hanging out in the video store reading all the boxes. Yeah,
well, that would have been where Dolls for me was a big one. I remember, even though I'm like, I'm gonna go in the horror section, I love looking at the covers. Like there were a couple of covers that made me feel off put, and one of them was Dolls, and Monkey Shines was another one where I was like, those look terrifying to me.
Yeah. When you think about it, they're very similar.
They are. Like I can think a lot.
The sort of just stare this little creature just staring at you from the box cover.
Yeah, I remember our guest Heather Buckley, who was on the Dolls episode. We had a really fun conversation talking about movie poster art and VHS box art, and she was saying how the Midnight Video VHS for Microwave Massacre scared her when she was a kid. And I was like, all of that kind of stuff with the like severed heads or gory tableaus, that was fine to me. It was just something about the doll holding its eyes. I was like, well, I've decided that that's terrifying.
Yeah,
it's like I shan't be watching that.
Yeah. I mean, you'll notice we're kind of going to lengths to avoid talking about the actual movie here. I don't know if we're all kind of in an accord that like there's not really a whole lot to latch on to with this movie.
Yeah, before we recorded, you were saying how you don't generally do a beat by beat recounting the plot, and I said, well, it's good because there isn't really much of one.
And yet there's kind of a lot of plot, but there's a lot of world building.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah. Again, this is clearly meant to be the first in a hopeful franchise.
Yeah.
So you're not getting a plot so much as just setting up this world and setting up these characters and getting this little core group of heroes together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the big appeal to it, But there's just, I think it generally looks pretty cool. I think the print that exists of this, I don't know where y'all watched it. I just had to rent it off of Amazon Prime, but
that's where I saw it. Yeah.
I think the print that exists of this has aged poorly.
Yes.
I think this probably would have looked pretty good in the theater. I think looking at it in its non 3D form, it looks very blurry, very muddy, kind of like washed out. And just very brown. It's a very, very brown movie.
That happens when you watch a lot of these. Well, this one in particular, because outside of The Hills Have Eyes too, and Lawrence of Arabia, I don't think there's as much sand in a movie.
It's true.
These movies, they look very muted and very brown when you watch them in 2D. It was the same for Parasite. Parasite was beige. I had Friday the 13th 3 on VHS or pretty early on, and I always wondered why it looked so much worse than the other movies. Like I just remember watching it and being like, I really like the kills in this one, and obviously Jason gets his mask, so it's super cool for that reason. But I remember watching it and being like, why does everything look blurry? Why does this look like shit? Why is this guy holding a laundry pole up at the cat? Oh, yeah, that's right. This was originally in 3D because the box, the VHS box, goes out of its way to not tell you that. I think there's one maybe tagline about it says like new dimension and terror, but there's no other context. And they really went out of their way to try to beef up the 3D aspect when it got its like DVD and Blu-ray release, and anyone that ever does like 3D screenings of it, it's like that's the selling point.
Yeah.
Because the 3D in that movie is so fun in person. The 2D is flat and brown, and that's what this print of this movie was. I think there exists a Blu-ray version of this movie, and I'm sure that that was cleaned up to some extent, but I watched it on Prime Video also, and it looked uniformly pretty terrible.
Yeah. But I mean, I was appreciating some of the craft in this movie, as derivative as it is. Like, I think, and again, we're grading on the curve of having watched just like a ton of these movies and knowing that there were some highs and lows in their budgets with Empire and Full Moon Films. So this is just kind of on the upper end of their production level. You know, they built out these cars, and I'm always going to respond at least a little bit if you're building like a car out of old sheet metal and like driving it around in Death Valley and like bumping it into cactuses. Like, I'm always going to be a little bit on board if you go to that much trouble. And I appreciated like some of the sci-fi elements, you know, the flying scooters and the laser guns and then there's elements of fantasy there, like these magical power crystals that like, I mean, when did we lose that in our genre? I just have to ask, like, when did we lose magical power crystals in our genre fiction? We used to be a proper country. Okay. we got to start bringing that back. Yeah.
Sometime around November of 2016, I think.
Oh, damn it.
Just ruined everything. Just ruined everything.
No more power crystals. Okay. No. I do not have a trumpet.
Let's not.
Yeah, no, I do not have an impression. But this, I will toss out a couple of casting tidbits because there's some interesting casting here. This is one of like the three-pronged debut films of Kelly Preston. She was still going by the name Kelly Palzis at this time. She changed her name for this movie. I'm wondering if the fact that Michael Preston was in the cast influenced her at all. Maybe they hit it off, and she's like, "Oh, I like your name."
Oh, that's a nice name.
Yeah, but yeah, she had 3 movies in 1983. One was Christine, one was this, and the other was the Charles Bronson film 10 to Midnight, where I believe she just played like a nude sorority girl in one scene and gets killed.
Hey, Gene Davis, put your clothes on if you're going to kill those girls.
I know what you're using this for jacking off.
It's so disgusting. I love it. That's one of my favorite episodes that we've done is 10 to Midnight.
10 to Midnight. A great episode of Kill by Kill. Also a movie that I really like for some reason.
It's horrible, but it's great too. But
I watched it for the first time recently on kind of a whim, just because I'm like, you know what, Charles Bronson is a big blind spot for me, and I was not expecting that many balls. It was a very, very, very testicular forward movie, and I respect that. For the early 80s, that's kind of a rarity.
Yeah, but yeah, Kelly Preston, I mean, God rest her soul, she's not very good in this. I hesitate even saying this. I've never really thought she was very good, and I feel bad saying that because she died young, and by all accounts, she was a lovely human being and like a really kind person. I don't want to besmirch her, but I can't really think of what the Kelly Preston role that I really like is. You know, like I can't really go back to it. Like, yeah, it's like Twins maybe is the closest, but that's not a movie I like. So I don't know. I don't really know. She has a pretty memorable role in Jerry Maguire, but she's not in it very long. I mean, I think in supporting roles, she's all right, but like a little bit out of her depth in playing lead roles.
Yeah, a little bit, you know, and she's perfectly pleasant here. You know, she's not really given a whole lot to do. But kind of really nobody is given too much to do. The one tidbit that I found that was fun was that this is a very early role for Richard Mall, who they insisted that he shave his head for this role, and he was allegedly very upset about this because it was pilot season and he was trying to get out there and try and get some stuff. But he reluctantly agreed, and he wound up getting cast in Night Court like the year after this, or like while he was in production for this. So he still had his shaved head, and that just wound up being the look of his character for 8 seasons on that hit sitcom, you know? So that kind of worked out for him. I don't know if it was the bald head that caused them to gravitate towards him on that, but it clearly worked that he was this 6'8".
I mean, it
gigantic
made
man with a bald head.
Bull a standout character to me watching the show as a kid. Like
Absolutely.
I loved Bull probably for that reason. Yeah, because he was big and silly and had a shaved head.
Yeah. No, and he's really fun in these. Like I said, he and Jeffrey Byron both basically rolled right over from this into the Dungeon Master the next day. And Richard Moll's playing kind of a similar character in that, which is like tall, villainous guy who shouts a lot, you know, but he's a little more kind of a frenemy sort of character in this one. But I always enjoy Richard Moll. I'm never gonna be mad about it. And Jeffrey Byron is great in this too. We've had, like we said, we had him on the show. He's a lovely guy. Had a lot of great stories about working on this and on the Dungeon Master. So definitely check that one out. And if you're listening, hey Jeffrey, how's it going? You were good in this. We had fun. We had fun with this movie. Yeah,
he was so charismatic and fun when he was on the show, and I feel like you get to see, like, he's definitely, the way his character is here is definitely like, you know, floppy haired Luke Skywalker type, you know, especially once Thomerson comes into the mix, and then he's kind of, you know, playing the straight man to Thomerson's like inebriated Han Solo. And you know, he's clearly not given as much, I think, to do in this as he is in Dungeon Master. I think in Dungeon Master he's gets to go a little bit bigger, have a little more fun. Here his like performance, I think, is purposefully a little bit more subdued, based on how this character is written, this Finder. But yeah, he just lovely person to talk to, with amazing stories and just a great energy. And so I'm glad to be able to say that about him. I'm not having to, you know, be charitable and say something I don't mean on microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and this movie wasn't necessarily like blowing me away or pulling me along with the plot necessarily, but I found it pleasant to watch because I like movies of this era that are kind of like digging around in these genre tropes, and there's a good amount of cheese, there's a good amount of camp, but like it's entertaining to me, and I like just kind of like marinating in this world a little bit, even if the plot isn't particularly propulsive. And we also get Tim Thomerson here playing kind of the Han Solo type. You know, he's the roguish, like, you know, loner who gets dragged along, and he's also a little bit of the comic relief, which I think he's always really, you know, he's got kind of that Leslie Nielsen energy of just like straight-faced silliness. That's just, it always complements things really well. So yeah, love Tim Thomerson.
Yeah, and you're saying how you enjoyed looking at this movie. That's probably because, you know, it took 4 people to shoot Jaws 3, and it looks like absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
Mac Allberg shot this. And so, yeah, I mean, there's stuff that's obviously framed and blocked and in a way to maximize the 3D effect.
Yeah.
But that being said, it looks cinematic at times, you know, in a way that sometimes these, like, you know, these, even the 3D stuff like Amityville 3D or Coming At Ya, the first like movie of this wave of movies, it looks, the gimmick is kind of what's really up front. And this is interesting in the way that Parasite was, because Parasite, we thought it was how Charles Band wanted to stage the 3D sequences was kind of unorthodox. And I feel that way about this too. I feel like, with the exception of obviously times when things look like they're coming at the screen, I felt like it was more of a depth thing with this, like it was with Parasite. And I think having Mac Allberg shoot it made it look as good as it possibly could look. Like, yes, we all watched a crappy print. If you saw, you know, a Blu-ray or a 4K restored version of this, yeah, it's cheap and chintzy at times, but probably looks good because it has a professional DP who, you know, is maybe the patron saint of our show. who
Yeah,
can make
yeah.
the best of these movies and look amazing, and can make even the kind of middling ones look pretty professional and passable a lot of the time.
I will, not to compare Metalstorm to Avatar twice in one episode, but
It's too late.
it
We're gonna get
is.
this on a shirt now. Steve
They
says
did kind of.
Storm is better than Avatar. Put it on
You
a
know,
shirt.
I'm willing to hear an argument. But yeah, it's I think that's what Avatar hit on like years later, and that's what was so kind of mind blowing. That you think of before that, you thought of 3D as something like, you know, a paddle ball is coming at you. Oh, the arrow, Jason's shooting the arrow right at you. Now it's just about depth, and it's about kind of like drawing you into the frame a little bit. And I think when Avatar really nailed that, people were sort of on board with 3D again. I am glad that trend is dead again. I'm sure it will be back in another form to haunt us. I don't know. Gina, were you a 3D fan?
Like the original, like that mid '80s cycle, or just in general?
Really, like in any form, yeah. Because I've
Not
gone
really.
through. Yeah, same. Yeah.
Because I wear I wear glasses, so that's like an extra pain in the ass to like put have to put the glasses on over the glasses.
Exactly.
And a lot of times, like if it's just used to create like additional depth to like backgrounds, it's fine.
Yeah.
But like when it's just like, annihilating you with just stuff, 9 times out of 10, I would just come out of it with a headache, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, I didn't need this to enjoy the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I and it would just kind of like jack up the price on the tickets. And
That's the main
sometimes
thing. Yeah.
And you had that horrible trend in the mid 2010s where it's just like they would clumsily retrofit 3D onto a movie that was not shot in 3D, so everything just looked like shit, and you got like minimal effect on it. I call it the Last Airbender effect, ultimately. Which is the one problem with that movie. Otherwise, flawless. So I've just never been a fan. Yeah, it's partially the glasses, and it's partially just like the effort never super feels worth it to me outside of like a handful of times.
Well, because the gimmick always overshadows the movie 99% of the time. I was just trying right now to remember if I enjoyed My Bloody Valentine 3D, and I couldn't tell you. I don't remember anything about it. I know I saw it. I don't remember if it was good, if it was bad, if it was fun, if it was boring. I do remember maybe it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre being real bad.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one. Was that from like 2013 or so?
I believe
something
so,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, I didn't see that particular one, but
that's the Do Your Thing Cuz one, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, Gina. I didn't mean to give you just like full body.
Yeah, I know we're gonna get to that eventually, and I'm just like, I'm dreading it.
I mean, I think we can all agree the best use of 3D ever was Piranha 3D, where Jerry O'Connell's severed penis gets regurgitated towards the screen before being eaten again. Genuinely, that movie had it kind of dialed in. Yeah, I think they understood the joke a little bit.
I think that's kind of what works about Friday the 13th Part 3 is that they play with some, when you see it in 3D, it's like, oh, this popcorn, it's coming right at me, and it sounds so stupid and it looks so stupid when you watch it in 2D, but there's something kind of giddy and fun about it in person. Same thing with the yo-yo. But then the smart thing that movie does is once Jason is out of the barn with the mask on, it stops doing stuff like that, and it starts only really having the horror related stuff be in 3D, or at least, so, and I think that's why that movie works in 3D like that. I feel like Amityville 3D didn't work. Jaws 3D I definitely don't think works. And I'm trying to remember what else. I mean, Parasite, has a couple of moments, but again, we watched that in as 2D as you can possibly be. Same with this one, but I'm curious. We're about due for that resurgence again. It feels like every 10, 15 years, it kind of just, I don't know. We'll hear grumblings that James Cameron's got another Avatar almost completed, and
I don't even have a head for what this would be, but I'm dreading that it's just going to be 3D AI. I don't know why. I'm just putting those two words together because I think that's all the thought that's going to be put into it. But yeah, I think it's going to just be extra unwatchable. It's really bad. But I'll avoid it. I'll trot out the glasses for every new Avatar movie, and that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, this one, man, it really is like this person needs to get a MacGuffin and kind of goes from one place to another. But in a way, it's like this movie goes from being really lethargic and very kind of plodding. Then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, now we got a scene where there's some like shitty cyber trucks that are being catapulted into the air and flipping around. Uh, I, I cannot tell you the satisfaction that I get out of recognizing that like these intentionally built Cybertrucks in what the engineers and designers thought was the best possible design do not rise above shitty 80s sci-fi vehicle. Like they just don't. And it's you look at them here and it's like, wow, look how stupid these look. And you're like, oh wait, no, the worst person you know might be driving one right now.
Yep, exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've kind of wrung everything we can out of this particular Metalstorm. Gena, thank you so much for being here with us today to talk about this very silly movie.
Thank you.
Oh man, a delight to have you as always. Where can people find all of your stuff?
Well, as mentioned, I am the co-host of the Kill by Kill podcast, which we just celebrated our 9th year.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
On the air in June. I believe in September we'll hit our 400th episode. Right now we have just started a run devoted to Stephen King and Stephen King adjacent movies. So you can find us on pretty much all podcast servers. I also have my newsletter, Gena Watches Things. That's genawatchesthings.ghost.io. So most of my writing is predominantly there now.
Very cool.
Gina, I want to say since Kill by Kill is mostly a horror movie podcast, but there's so many horror movie podcasts that are out there. And I know when I found Kill by Kill, however many years back, I was really struck by the unique approach that you guys took to breaking down these movies and how, I have consumed stuff about the Friday the 13th series, or for example, tons of it. I mean, I've read so many books, watched so many documentaries, and I saw like you guys have ones where you break one movie down sometimes, or you used to at least, over multiple episodes. So for anyone who's never heard Kill by Kill before, tell us a little bit about the kind of mission statement or the approach to that show, because I think it's really cool and it differentiates it from a lot of shows. And then if there's a particular like movie franchise or episode that you think like should be someone's gateway or the first one, what would you pick?
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done it quite that way. We did the Friday the 13th movies, and we did the Nightmare on Elm Street movies that way. I mean, honestly, if you just really want probably our run, people always seem to enjoy the ones we don't like as much. So I would say you can get into maybe I know Jason X was one that we had a very hard time with, because in breaking it. If we'd done it in one episode, it probably would have been a lot better.
Yeah,
but because we broke it down according to we used to do it like, I think it was like every 3 or 4 kills.
Yeah.
And so like for that one, that ended up stretching out to like 5 or 6 episodes.
And
you could hear us just slowly losing our minds. And yeah, so I guess you could start there. And then I think after Nightmare on Elm Street, we kind of switched over to a general, like just doing one episode. A couple movies we have split into 2, but generally speaking, we do try to stick mostly with covering in one episode.
Well, I would like to highlight something that's not horror in the conventional sense. If you, for a little, nugget of a one-off for something from Kill by Kill, you guys did a hilarious episode on the Billy Squier video for Rock Me Tonight.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we haven't done those in a while. We should.
Bring those back.
We use those. We basically started those as kind of fillers. but then we ended up having a lot of fun doing them. Yeah, that's actually a favorite one of mine too.
Yeah, I have to reiterate, like I said, not horror in the conventional sense.
Yeah, no, we kind of, because a lot of I mean, I don't even know if they even make music videos anymore. I'm so out of the loop with that kind of thing. But like back in again back in the 80s, they a lot of music videos were very elaborate and would have like a plot. Now the plot wasn't always coherent, but it did try to have something like a big like a mini movie. And some of them had some horror elements.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we covered. We covered a couple videos that had this. We did that. We did Somebody's Watching Me.
Mhm.
We did Self-Control, the Laura Branigan song.
Oh, that was
Oh,
directed by
yeah.
William Friedkin, that video.
William Friedkin. Yep.
Oh, damn.
Yep. So yeah. We did a short run of those. We really should do more of those.
See, listeners, if you check out Kill by Kill, you're going to find something that you're absolutely going to love. I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
If you like what we do on this show week to week, you can show us by jumping on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave us a nice 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. It will just help us reach a wider audience, which is always a way to show your support for the show. If you want to interact with us, you can leave comments on Spotify after you listen to the episode. We're pretty good about seeing and responding to those. You can also email us at puppetmasterscastlefreaks@gmail.com. The best way to keep up with the show is on Instagram, so you can follow us at puppetmasters_castlefreaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jared or Steve at Minotaur Matador. We're on YouTube, we're on Threads, we're on Blue Sky. It's a lot, and frankly, I don't know how Steve does it because he's got another show to promote. Steve, what other show have you got that listeners might be interested in?
Well, I have another show called Cinema Arcade. That is cinema and arcade mashed together. That is what we are doing on that show. We are watching a movie and playing a game based on that movie. And as we are getting ready to come up on our spooky season, every October we're doing all horror movies, all horror games. So I'm going to give y'all an exclusive sneak preview about some of the things we're covering on that. I will say it's going to involve George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino fighting some vampires. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the fourth George A. Romero Night of the Living Dead film, a very strange movie. We're going to be talking a little bit about a certain large-chested horror hostess who has her own video game on the DOS platform back in the 80s. We're going to be talking about that. That might be the one right there. And we're going to be talking about a certain film released on Halloween. You can probably guess what that's going to be. That's right. Rocky Horror Picture Show. We're talking about that on Halloween Day. No, we're talking about Halloween also. Yeah, we're doing.
I thought you were talking about Skate Town, USA.
Oh, Skate Town, USA would be a good one. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We got Ninja Turtles coming up. We got Nacho Libre, Little Nicky. We got a lot of fun, weird stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. So definitely check that out. And also check us out next week. Heavy sigh. I just lost a little bit of enthusiasm because we're ripping a Band-Aid, y'all. We have been pushing this particular episode all the way since our third episode. Okay, that's 126 episodes ago. We talked about the film Evil Bong, and with a heavy sense of dread and resignation that we were going to have 7 more Evil Bong movies to have to talk about after that. And so we've pushed this off as long as we possibly could. It's time to finally step back into the Bongiverse. We are watching Evil Bong 2, King Bong, and Evil Bong 3D, The Wrath of Bong. Okay, I've watched one of them already. I've got another one I've got to watch tonight before we do our recording tomorrow. And I think it's going to be a fun episode to talk about. I think I'm going to get to be a little nasty, which will be fun.
I can, Steve, you joined this call in just wonderful spirits on top of the world. I just can't wait to see you tomorrow as just a broken man.
Oh, I'm halfway there. But I had this fun realization where I'm like, oh yeah, I have to watch Evil Bong 3 tonight. But you know what? I can do work. Yes. While that's on. I can get ahead of some work.
You could. I don't think you need to watch it intensely.
I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't. I think I'm
No.
probably get the gist of it just from the
I-
series. But hey, maybe it'll surprise me. I'm always open to being surprised.
If ever a folding laundry movie existed,
Yeah. While high, apparently. Yeah. So
yeah, you can do both. So thank you again, listeners. Thank you again to Gena Radcliffe for joining us to talk about Metalstorm, the destruction of Jared-Syn. We will see you guys next time for Evil Bong 2, King Bong, and Evil Bong 3D, The Wrath of Bong. I didn't have to say those again, but I did
you did.
because we're doing them. And thank you to everyone who has been listening for this whole time. We love all of you. Thank you for going on this amazing ride with us through all the peaks and inevitable valleys that may or may not be coming next week.
And all hail the power crystal.